The air crackled with the kind of tension that could snap a heart in two. Ezra and Elias stood shoulder to shoulder, their breath shallow, as the CEO's cold voice sliced through the crowded Manhattan sidewalk. "Move aside, kids. This spot's reserved for someone who matters." Ezra's fists clenched, his leather jacket creaking under the strain. At 17, he'd learned to swallow insults, but this one burned. Elias, his twin, adjusted his glasses, his soft blue scarf fluttering in the evening breeze, and whispered, "Easy, don't." But Ezra's eyes blazed. He wasn't about to let some suit in a limousine push them around. Not today. Not when their mom, Lena, stood just behind them, her presence a quiet anchor in the storm. They were in New York City, the heart of dreams and despair, where ambition clashed with humanity daily. The twins had grown up here, navigating its chaos with their mother, a single parent who'd raised them to be unapologetically themselves. Ezra was fire, bold, quick to anger, and fiercely protective of Elias, who was the calm to his storm, introspective and gentle. They were openly gay, out since middle school, and their bond as twins was unbreakable, a shield against a world that didn't always understand. The limousine gleamed under the streetlights, its driver holding the door open as the CEO, a man named Victor Hargrove, stepped out. He was all sharp angles, tailored suit, slicked back hair, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I said move," he repeated, his tone clipped, as if the twins were nothing more than litter on his path. The crowd parted around them, onlookers whispering, phones already out to capture the scene. Lena stepped forward, her worn sneakers silent on the pavement. She was a woman of quiet strength, her dark hair streaked with gray, her eyes carrying the weight of years spent fighting for her boys. "They're not moving," she said, her voice steady but laced with steel. "This is a public sidewalk." Victor's laugh was sharp, dismissive. "Public? Sweetheart, nothing in this city is truly public when you've got the right connections." He gestured to the nearby luxury boutique, its glass doors reflecting the city's glow. "I'm meeting the owner inside. You're in my way." Ezra felt Elias's hand tremble in his, and his protective instincts surged. "We're not your doormat," he snapped, stepping closer to Victor. The man's security guard, a hulking figure in black, moved forward, but Victor raised a hand to stop him. "You've got spirit," Victor said, his eyes narrowing. "But spirit doesn't pay for prime real estate. Move, or I'll have you escorted." The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a mix of sympathy and curiosity. Ezra could feel the weight of their stares, the judgment, the assumption that they were just kids causing trouble. But this wasn't about trouble, it was about dignity. He and Elias had faced enough sneers, enough whispered slurs, to know when to stand their ground. Lena's hand rested on Ezra's shoulder, grounding him. "You don't own this city, Mr. Hargrove," she said, her voice rising just enough to carry. "And you don't own my sons." Victor's smirk faltered, but only for a moment. "You know my name? Cute. Then you know I'm not someone you want to cross." He leaned in, his voice low. "I'm late for a meeting that could buy and sell your entire life." "Step aside." Elias, usually the quieter twin, spoke up, his voice soft but clear. "We're not stepping anywhere. We're here to shop, same as you." The boutique behind them was a high-end fashion house, the kind of place where a single shirt cost more than Lena's monthly rent. They'd come here for a special occasion, a rare splurge for Elias's art showcase next week, where he'd display his paintings. Ezra had insisted they find something that made Elias feel like the star he was. But now, this moment, this confrontation, felt bigger than a shopping trip. Victor's eyes flicked to Elias, then back to Lena. "Shop? Here." He chuckled, as if the idea was absurd. "You're wasting everyone's time." "Security." The guard stepped forward again, his hand hovering near his radio. Ezra braced himself, ready to shove back if it came to that, but Lena's hand tightened on his shoulder. She reached into her purse, her movements deliberate, and pulled out a small, embossed card. The crowd went silent, as if the city itself held its breath. Victor's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to be? Lena held the card up, her expression unreadable. This, she said, is why you're going to apologize to my sons. Right now. The card gleamed under the streetlights, its gold lettering catching the fading sun. Victor's face paled just for a second before he masked it with a scowl. You're bluffing, he said, but his voice wavered. Ezra and Elias exchanged a glance, confusion flickering between them. They'd never seen that car before. What was it? And why did it make a man like Victor Hargrove look like he'd just swallow glass? The moment stretched, taut as a wire. Lena's hand didn't shake as she held the card. Her gaze locked on Victor's. The crowd leaned in, phone still recording, the air thick with anticipation. Ezra's heart pounded. He wanted to demand answers, to know what power his mother held in that small piece of paper. But he trusted her. He always had. Victor cleared his throat, his confidence fraying. You think a card changes anything? He said, but his eyes darted to the boutique's entrance, where a woman in a sleek blazer appeared, her expression unreadable. She was the store's owner, Margaret Voss, known for her iron grip on the city's fashion scene. Margaret, Victor called, forcing a smile. Tell these people to clear out. I've got business to discuss. Margaret's eyes flicked to Lena, then to the card. Her lips parted, just slightly, and she stepped forward. Lena, she said, her voice warm but cautious. It's been a while. The twins froze. Their mom knew Margaret Voss? The woman whose designs graced runways from Paris to Tokyo? Ezra's mind raced, piecing together fragments of their life. Lena's late-night phone calls, her mysterious trips out of town, the way she always seemed to know more than she let on. Margaret, Lena replied, her tone even. I'd like you to remind Mr. Hargrove that this store welcomes everyone, especially my sons. Victor's face reddened. This is ridiculous. I'm a paying customer. And they're not. Margaret cut in, her voice sharp. She turned to the twins, her gaze softening. Ezra, Elias, come inside. Let's find something perfect for the showcase. The crowd erupted in whispers, some cheering softly, others still filming. Victor stood rooted, his jaw tight, as Lena tucked the card back into her purse. She didn't gloat, didn't smirk, just guided her boys toward the boutique's doors, her head high. Inside, the store was a cathedral of luxury, crystal chandeliers, velvet displays, racks of clothing that shimmered like dreams. Ezra fell out of place, his combat boots scuffing the polished floor, but Elias's eyes lit up, already scanning the racks. What was that car, Mom? Ezra whispered as Margaret led them to a private fitting area. Lena smiled, but it was a smile that held secrets. Just a reminder, she said softly, that no one gets to make you feel small. Elias touched Ezra's arm, his voice barely audible. She's always got our backs, doesn't she? Ezra nodded, his throat tight. He didn't know what the card was, or how their mom knew Margaret Voss, but he knew one thing. Lena was a force, and she'd just turned the tables on a man who thought he owned the world. As they stepped into the fitting room, the weight of the moment lingered. This wasn't just about clothes or a confrontation. It was about who they were, who they'd always been. Two gay twins, unapologetic, standing tall with their mother's love as their shield. But the card and the secrets it held hinted at a story far bigger than this moment. And Ezra had a feeling they were only at the beginning. The fitting room was a world apart from the chaos outside, its soft lighting and plush chairs a stark contrast to the city's sharp edges. Ezra leaned against the wall, arms crossed, still buzzing from the confrontation. Elias, meanwhile, was already lost in the racks, his fingers brushing over silks and linens, his eyes bright with possibility. Try this, Margaret said, handing Elias a tailored blazer in deep emerald. It'll bring out your eyes. Elias hesitated, glancing at Lena. Mom, this is expensive. Lena's smile was warm but firm. You're worth it, Eli. Both of you are. Ezra watched his mom, still trying to unravel the mystery of the card. She'd always been their rock, working long hours as a freelance graphic designer to keep them afloat in a city that chewed up dreams. But this, knowing Margaret Voss, holding a card that made a CEO flinch, was something else entirely. He wanted to ask, but the fitting room felt too intimate, too sacred, for questions that might shatter the moment. Margaret moved with purpose, pulling pieces for both twins. For Ezra, she chose a black silk shirt with subtle silver threading, sleek but rebellious, like him. "You've got edge," she said, her tone approving. "This suits you." Ezra raised an eyebrow, slipping into the shirt. "You sound like you know us." Margaret's smile was enigmatic. "Your mom's told me a lot about you both." Elias looked up from the mirror, where he was adjusting the blazer. "Mom, how do you know her?" Lena sat on a velvet ottoman, her hands folded. "Margaret and I go way back," she said simply. "Before you two were born." The twins exchanged a glance. Before they were born? That was a time they rarely discussed. A shadowy part of Lena's life, filled with gaps they'd never quite filled. Their dad had left when they were infants, and Lena never spoke of him. All they knew was that she'd been an artist in her youth, part of New York's vibrant creative scene. Before life demanded she trade paintbrushes for paychecks. Margaret sensed the tension and changed the subject. "Elias, your showcase is next week, right? I saw your portfolio online. Your paintings there raw, honest. You got something special." Elias blushed, pushing up his glasses. "Thanks. I just paint what I feel." His art was his voice, a way to process the world. Growing up gay in a city that could be both liberating and cruel, Elias poured his heart into canvases. Vibrant abstracts that captured love, pain, and the quiet beauty of being himself. Ezra, on the other hand, expressed himself through action, standing up to bullies, shielding his brother, wearing his identity like armor. As Elias tried on more outfits, Ezra's mind wandered back to Victor Hargrove. The man's arrogance, his assumption that wealth equaled power, gnawed at him. "That guy out there," Ezra said suddenly, "he's not done with us, is he?" Lena's expression darkened. Men like Victor don't like being challenged, but he doesn't know who he's dealing with. Margaret nodded, her eyes flicking to Lena. "He's used to getting his way." But that card, she trailed off, as if catching herself. Ezra couldn't hold back anymore. "Okay, what is that card?" Lena sighed, her fingers brushing her purse. "It's not just a card. It's a promise. A debt owed. A debt," Elias asked, pausing mid-button. "From a long time ago," Lena said, her voice softening. "Margaret and we were part of a group. Artists, dreamers, people who didn't fit the mold. We made a pact to look out for each other, no matter what. That card is a symbol of that." Ezra frowned. "So what? It's like a secret club?" Lena laughed, but it was tinged with sadness. "Something like that. Let's just say it's a reminder that no one, not even Victor Hargrove, is untouchable." The twins let it drop, sensing there was more to the story, but knowing Lena would share when she was ready. Margaret clapped her hands, breaking the moment. "All right, boys, let's focus. Elias, you need something bold for the showcase. Ezra, something that says you're his biggest fan." As they tried on more clothes, the mood lightened. Ezra caught Elias's eye in the mirror, and they shared a grin. This was them, two brothers, different as night and day, but bound by love. And their mom, with her quiet strength and mysterious past, was the glue that held them together. But outside, the city pulsed with its own rhythm. Victor Hargrove hadn't left. He stood by his limousine, his phone pressed to his ear, his voice low and furious. "Find out everything about them," he snapped to someone on the other end. "The mother, the kids, all of it. I want leverage." The boutique's doors swung open. A young man slipped inside, unnoticed by the twins. He was in his 20s, dressed in a sharp suit, his eyes scanning the room. He approached Margaret, whispering something that made her stiffen. "Lena," Margaret said quietly, "we might have a problem." Lena followed her gaze to the young man, who was now watching the twins with an intensity that sent a chill down Ezra's spine. "Who's that?" he asked, his voice low. Margaret's lips pressed into a thin line. "One of Victor's people. He's not letting this go. Elias's hand found Ezra's, their fingers interlocking. The fitting room, once a sanctuary, now felt like a stage for something bigger, a battle they hadn't asked for but couldn't avoid. Lena stood, her eyes fierce. "Let him try," she said. "He doesn't know what he started." The twins didn't know the full story, but they felt it. The weight of their mother's past, the power of that card, and the storm brewing just beyond the boutique's walls. They were in the heart of it now, and there was no turning back. The boutique's air grew heavier, the soft hum of luxury now laced with an undercurrent of threat. Ezra's eyes tracked the young man in the suit, who lingered near a display of silk scarves, pretending to browse but clearly watching them. Elias's grip on Ezra's hand tightened, his usual calm fraying at the edges. "Mom," Elias whispered, "what's going on?" Lena's jaw was set, her eyes locked on the stranger. "Stay close," she said, her voice low but steady. "Margaret, can we use the back room?" Margaret nodded, leading them through a velvet curtain into a private lounge reserved for VIP clients. The room was intimate, with mirrored walls and a single chandelier casting fractured light. As the curtain fell shut, the sounds of the boutique faded, leaving only the twins, Lena, and Margaret. "Talk," Ezra said, his patience wearing thin. "Who's that guy and why's he watching us?" Margaret glanced at Lena, who gave a slight nod. "His name's Caleb," Margaret said. "Victor's assistant. He's loyal to a fault and does Victor's dirty work, digging up secrets, twisting arms." "Secrets?" Elias asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "What kind of secrets?" Lena sat on a leather chaise, her hands clasped tightly. "Victor Hargrove isn't just a CEO. He's a collector of power, influence, and information. He doesn't like being challenged, and we just did that in front of a crowd." Ezra's mind raced. "So he's what, spying on us now? Because of your card?" "It's not just the card," Lena said, her voice heavy. "It's what it represents. Margaret and I, we were part of a group called the Collective. Artists, activists, people who push back against people like Victor, people who think money buys everything." Margaret took over, her tone grim. "The Collective made enemies. Victor was one of them, even back then. He wanted to control the art scene, turn it into another one of his investments. We stood in his way." Elias's eyes widened. "So that card, it's like a membership?" "More like a bond," Lena said. "A promise we made to protect each other. Margaret's part of it. So are others, people with influence, resources. Victor knows what it means, and he knows it's a threat." Ezra paced, his boots echoing on the polished floor. "So he's coming after us because you embarrassed him?" "That's it. It's not just embarrassment," Margaret said. "Victor's building a new empire, real estate, fashion art. He's trying to buy my boutique, my brand. He wants control, and you three just reminded him he doesn't have it." Elias sank onto a chair, his scarf dangling loosely. "What does he want with us, though? We're nobody." "You're not nobody," Lena said fiercely. "You're my sons, and you're everything. Victor sees you as leverage. He'll dig into our lives, try to find something to use against us." Ezra stopped pacing, his eyes narrowing. "Let him try. We've got nothing to hide." But Lena's expression faltered, just for a moment, and Ezra caught it. There was something she wasn't saying. He wanted to press, but the door to the lounge swung open, and Caleb stepped inside, his smile slick as oil. "Mrs. Carter," he said, addressing Lena. "Mr. Hargrove would like a word." Outside, Margaret stepped forward, her voice icy. "This is my store, Caleb. You don't get to make demands here." Caleb's smile didn't waver. "It's not a demand. It's an invitation. Mr. Hargrove respects your history. He just wants to clear the air." Lena stood, her purse clutched tightly. "Tell Victor I'll meet him when I'm ready. Not a second sooner." Caleb's eyes flicked to the twins, lingering on Elias's nervous expression. "Cute kids," he said, his tone dripping with insinuation. "Talented, too, from what I hear. Be a shame if anything got in the way of that art showcase." Ezra lunged forward, but Lena grabbed his arm. "Don't," she said sharply. "He's baiting you." Caleb chuckled, backing toward the door. Think about the invitation, Mrs. Carter. Mr. Hargrove doesn't like to wait. As the door closed, the room felt smaller, the walls closing in. Elias's voice trembled. Mom, what do we do? Lena took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. We don't run. We don't hide. We face this together. Margaret pulled out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen. I'm calling in a favor, she said. The collective still has people who owe us. Victor's not the only one with connections. Ezra watched his mom, the weight of her words sinking in. The collective wasn't just a memory. It was alive, a network of allies ready to fight. But what kind of fight was this? And what secrets was Lena holding back? As Margaret made her calls, Lena pulled the twins close. Listen to me, she said, her voice low and fierce. No matter what happens, you two are stronger than you know. You're not just my sons. You're each other's strength. Don't ever forget that. Elias nodded, his eyes shining with unshed tears. Ezra squeezed his brother's shoulder, his own heart pounding. They were in deep now, caught in a web of power and secrets that stretched back decades. But they weren't alone. Lena's love, the collective support, and their own unbreakable bond were their weapons. Outside, the city roared on, oblivious to the battle brewing. Victor Hargrove sat in his limousine, his phone buzzing with updates from Caleb. They're not as clean as they seem, Caleb reported. The mother's got a past, and the twins, let's just say they've got their own vulnerabilities. Victor smiled, his fingers tapping the armrest. Good, he said. Let's see how far they're willing to go. Back in the lounge, Ezra caught Elias's eye, a silent promise passing between them. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. But the shadow of Victor's threat loomed large, and the card in Lena's purse felt like both a shield and a spark, ready to ignite a fire they couldn't yet see. The lounge's mirrored walls reflected the twins' faces, their expressions a mix of fear and defiance. Ezra's jaw was set, his mind racing with questions about the collective, the card, and what Victor Hargrove might do next. Elias sat quietly, twisting his scarf, his eyes darting to Lena, who was now whispering with Margaret in the corner. Mom, Ezra said, breaking the silence. You need to tell us everything. Now. Lena turned, her face softening but resolute. You're right, she said. You deserve to know. She sat between them, her hands resting on theirs. The collective wasn't just a group of artists. We were rebels, in a way. Back in the 90s, New York was a battleground for creatives. Gentrification was swallowing our spaces, and people like Victor were buying up galleries, studios, anything that gave them control over the culture. We fought back, through art, protests, connections. The card was our symbol, a way to call in favors from those who shared our vision. Elias's voice was soft. What kind of favors? Protection, Lena said. Resources. Sometimes just a door open at the right time. Margaret used her influence in fashion to keep our work visible. Others had money, power, or secrets of their own. We were a family, bound by a promise to never let the world silence us. Ezra leaned forward. And Victor? Where does he fit in? Lena's eyes darkened. He was a young investor then, hungry for control. He tried to buy out a gallery we loved, a safe space for queer artists, for people like you two. We stopped him, exposed some of his shadier deals. He lost a lot of money and a lot of face. Margaret chimed in, her voice low. He's never forgotten it. And now he's back, richer and meaner, trying to take my boutique. He thinks he can erase the past. Elias's fingers tightened around his scarf. So he's targeting us to get to you? Lena nodded. He knows I'm part of the collective. That card reminded him we're still here, still fighting, but also painted a target on us. Ezra's fists clenched. Let him come. We're not scared. But Elias's eyes were wide, his voice trembling. Easy, what if he finds something? About us, about you know. Ezra froze. He knew what Elias meant. Their lives weren't perfect. There was the time Ezra got into a fight at school, defending Elias from a bully who'd called them slurs. The principal had let it slide, but it was on record. And Elias's anxiety, the therapy sessions, the medication, private, yes, but not impossible to dig up. Victor's resources could turn their vulnerabilities into weapons. Lena squeezed Elias's hand. He won't find anything that matters. You're my boys, and I'll protect you. Margaret's phone buzzed, and she glanced at the screen. It's done, she said. I've got someone from the collective coming. A lawyer, one of the best. She'll keep Victor at bay. But before anyone could respond, the lounge door opened again. Caleb stood there, this time with a woman in a sharp suit. Victor's lawyer, no doubt. Her name was Sylvia Kane, and her reputation preceded her. Ruthless, brilliant, and fiercely loyal to her clients. Lena Carter, Sylvia said, her voice smooth as glass. Mr. Hargrove proposes a deal. Step back, keep your little club out of his way, and he'll leave your family alone. Ezra stood, his voice sharp. We don't make deals with bullies. Sylvia's smile was cold. Bold words, young man, but you're playing a dangerous game. Mr. Hargrove has resources you can't imagine. Lena rose, her presence commanding. Tell Victor his resources don't scare me. I faced worse than him and come out standing. Sylvia's eyes narrowed, but she didn't push. You have until tomorrow to reconsider. After that, Mr. Hargrove won't be so generous. As she and Caleb left, the room felt colder. Margaret locked the door behind them, her hands shaking slightly. We need to move fast, she said. The collective's lawyer will be here soon, but Victor's already digging. We need to protect your boy's showcase, Elias. Elias's face paled. My showcase, what if he ruins it? He won't, Lena said firmly. We'll make sure of it. But Ezra saw the worry in her eyes, the weight of secrets she still hadn't shared. He pulled Elias close, his voice low. We're not letting him win, Eli. Your art's too important. Elias nodded, but his hands trembled. His showcase was more than just an event. It was his heart on display, his way of showing the world who he was. If Victor targeted it, it wouldn't just hurt Elias, it would break him. As night fell, the boutique felt like a fortress under siege. Margaret made calls, rallying the collective's allies. Lena sat with the twins, planning their next move. We need to show Victor we're not afraid, she said. Your showcase, Elias. It's our chance to fight back. Ezra grinned, a spark of defiance igniting. Let's make it unforgettable. Let's show him who we are. Elias managed a small smile, his courage flickering back. Okay, let's do it. But outside, Caleb was already at work, digging into the twin school records, Lena's past, anything that could give Victor an edge. And in his limousine, Victor smiled, a predator sensing blood. They think they can fight me, he said to himself. Let's see how long they last. The twins didn't know the full scope of the battle ahead, but they felt its weight. Lena's card had sparked a war, and they were at its heart. But they had each other, and that was a strength Victor could never understand. The next morning, the twins woke to the city's relentless hum, its energy seeping through their small Brooklyn apartment. Ezra lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling, replaying the boutique confrontation. Elias was already up, sketching in his notebook, his pencil moving in sharp, anxious strokes. Lena was in the kitchen, her phone buzzing with messages from the collective. We're not backing down, she said over breakfast, her voice firm. Elias, your showcase is in 5 days. We're going to make it happen, and we're going to make it loud. Elias nodded, but his eyes were shadowed. What if Victor shows up, or sends someone? Ezra slammed his coffee mug down. Let him. I'll handle it. Lena reached across the table, touching both their hands. We handle it together. The collective's got our back. Margaret's lawyer, Rachel, is meeting us today. She's tough. Victor won't know what hit him. The day unfolded in a blur of preparation. They met Rachel at a coffee shop in Soho, a woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She carried a briefcase stuffed with files, her presence radiating confidence. Victor's playing dirty, she said, sliding a folder across the table. He's got people digging into your school records, your social media, even Lena's old contracts. Ezra's stomach twisted. What's he looking for? Leverage, Rachel said bluntly. Anything to discredit you, scare you off. But he's not the only one who can play that game. The collective has its own resources. We're digging into his past, deals he buried, people he crossed. Lena's eyes gleamed. He's not untouchable. No one is. Rachel nodded. We've got a lead on a real estate deal he pushed through last year. Shady permits, displaced tenants. If we can tie it to him publicly, it'll hurt. Elias's voice was quiet. Will that stop him? It'll slow him down, Rachel said. Enough for us to protect your showcase. But we need to be careful. Victor's not above intimidation. As they left the coffee shop, Ezra noticed a man across the street, his phone aimed at them. Mom, he whispered, nodding toward the stranger. Lena's face hardened. Keep walking. Don't look back. They headed to the gallery hosting Elias's showcase, a small but prestigious space in Chelsea. The curator, a kind-eyed woman named Sophia, greeted them warmly. Elias, your pieces are stunning, she said, leading them to the exhibition room. They're going to make waves. Elias's paintings lined the walls, vibrant swirls of color, each one a story of love, struggle, and identity. One piece, a portrait of Ezra with his arm around Elias, their faces half-lit in shadow, made Ezra's throat tighten. You didn't tell me about this one, he said, his voice rough. Elias shrugged, a shy smile breaking through. It's us. I wanted it to be a surprise. Lena pulled them both into a hug. This is why we fight, she said. For you to be seen, to be heard. But the moment was cut short by a commotion outside. Through the gallery's glass windows, they saw a small crowd gathering. Protesters, holding signs that read, "Keep art pure," and "No agenda here." Ezra's blood ran cold. He recognized Caleb's face among them, directing the group like a conductor. They're victors, Rachel said, her voice tight. He's trying to scare off your audience. Sophia's face paled, but she squared her shoulders. This is my gallery. They don't get to dictate who shows here. Lena stepped outside, the twins and Rachel close behind. The protesters jeered, their signs bobbing in the air. Caleb stepped forward, his smile smug. Just making sure the public knows what kind of art they're supporting, he said. People have a right to choose. Ezra's fists clenched, but Lena spoke first, her voice carrying over the noise. This is about my son's art, not your boss's ego. If you have a problem, take it up with me. The crowd hesitated, some lowering their signs. Caleb's smile faltered, but he pressed on. We're just asking questions, Mrs. Carter. Like why your son's art seems to push a certain lifestyle. Elias flinched, and Ezra stepped forward, his voice low and dangerous. Say that again, and you'll regret it. Rachel put a hand on Ezra's arm, her eyes on Caleb. You're on thin ice, she said. We've got evidence of Victor's involvement in illegal evictions. Keep pushing, and it goes public. Caleb's eyes narrowed, but he backed off, signaling the protesters to disperse. As they left, Ezra felt a mix of relief and rage. They're not stopping, are they? He asked. No, Lena said, her voice steady. But neither are we. Back inside, Sophia promised extra security for the showcase. Rachel made calls, coordinating with the collective to counter Victor's moves. But Elias was shaken, his confidence crumbling. What if no one comes? He whispered to Ezra. What if they're all scared off? Ezra pulled him close. They'll come. Because your art's worth it. Because you're worth it. That night, back in their apartment, Lena sat the twins down. There's something else you need to know, she said, her voice heavy. The collective, it's not just about art. Some of us, including me, made enemies by exposing corruption. Victor wasn't the only one. There's a reason I've kept parts of my past from you. Ezra's heart sank. What kind of enemies? Lena hesitated, then pulled the card from her purse. The kind who don't forgive. The kind who might come for us now. The twins sat in silence, the weight of her words settling over them. The showcase was days away, and Victor's shadow loomed larger than ever. But they had a plan, a family, and a bond that no one could break. The fight was just beginning. The days leading up to the showcase were a whirlwind of tension and preparation. Ezra and Elias spent hours at the gallery, helping Sophia arrange the paintings while Lena and Rachel worked behind the scenes, rallying the collective's allies. The protesters returned daily, their signs more aggressive, their chants louder. Caleb was always there, watching, his presence a constant reminder of Victor's reach. Ezra tried to keep Elias's spirits up, cracking jokes and dragging him to their favorite diner for late-night milkshakes. But Elias's anxiety was palpable, his sketches growing darker, his hands shaking as he hung his final piece, a massive canvas of two figures embracing under a fractured sky, a tribute to their bond as twins. "It's beautiful, Eli," Ezra said, his voice soft. "You're going to blow them away." Elias managed a weak smile. "What if no one shows? What if Victor's people scare everyone off?" "They won't," Ezra said, though he wasn't sure himself. The gallery had received anonymous threats, and Sophia had doubled security. The collective had promised support, but Victor's influence was vast, his resources seemingly endless. Lena, meanwhile, was a force of nature. She met with collective members in secret, coordinating a counteroffensive. Rachel had uncovered more dirt on Victor, tax evasion, coerced contracts, and was preparing to leak it to the press. But Lena knew it wasn't enough. Victor wasn't just a businessman. He was a symbol of a system that crushed anyone who didn't fit its mold. The night before the showcase, Lena called a family meeting. The twins sat on their worn couch, the city's lights flickering through the window. "Tomorrow's big," Lena said, her voice steady. "Not just for Elias, but for all of us. Victor's going to try something. I can feel it. But we're ready." Ezra frowned. "What's he going to do? Crash the show?" "Maybe," Lena said. "Or worse. He's desperate to save face after that scene on the sidewalk." The card reminded him he's not invincible, and he hates that. Elias's voice was small. "What's the worst he could do?" Lena hesitated, then spoke. "He could try to discredit you. Your art, your identity. He'll use anything to make you feel small." Ezra's eyes blazed. "Let him try. We're not hiding who we are." Lena smiled, pride shining through her worry. "I know, and that's why we'll win. Because you two don't back down. Because we don't back down." The morning of the showcase dawned gray and cold, the city wrapped in a restless fog. The gallery buzzed with activity. Sophia directing staff, security checking IDs, collective members arriving in discreet cars. Ezra and Elias wore the outfits Margaret had chosen. Elias in his emerald blazer, Ezra in his black silk shirt. They looked like warriors ready for battle. As guests began to arrive, the mood was electric. Art critics, collectors, and queer activists filled the space, their voices mingling with the soft hum of music. Elias's paintings glowed under the lights, each one a story of resilience and love. Ezra stayed close, his eyes scanning the crowd for trouble. Then it happened. Caleb slipped in, flanked by two men in suits. They didn't carry signs, but their presence was a threat. Sophia moved to intercept, but Caleb waved her off, his smile predatory. "Just here to appreciate the art," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Ezra's fists clenched, but Lena appeared, her expression calm but lethal. "You're welcome to look," she said. "But one wrong move and you're out." Caleb's eyes flicked to the card in her hand. She'd brought it, a silent warning. "You think that scares me?" he said, but his voice lacked conviction. The showcase began, and Elias took the stage, his voice trembling at first but growing stronger. "These paintings are my truth," he said, gesturing to the walls. "They're about love, about struggle, about being seen. I hope they speak to you." The crowd applauded, some wiping tears. Ezra's chest swelled with pride, but his eyes never left Caleb. The man was whispering to his companions, their heads bent over a phone. Rachel approached Lena, her face grim. "They're spreading rumors online," she whispered. "Lies about Elias's art, about your family. They're trying to tank the show." Lena's jaw tightened. "Can we stop it?" "I'm trying," Rachel said. "But we need something bigger, something to turn the narrative." Before Lena could respond, a commotion erupted at the entrance. Victor Hargrove himself strode in, his presence commanding silence. The crowd parted, their whispers rising. He wore a tailored suit, his smile sharp as a blade. "Lena Carter," he said, his voice carrying. "I thought I'd see what all the fuss is about." Ezra stepped forward, but Lena held him back. "You're here to gloat?" she asked, her tone icy. Victor's eyes gleamed. "I'm here to offer a deal. Walk away from the spectacle, and I'll leave your family alone. Keep pushing, and I'll make sure this city forgets you ever existed." The room went silent, all eyes on Lena. She stepped closer, her voice low but clear. "You don't scare me, Victor, and you don't scare my sons." She pulled out the card, holding it up for all to see. "This is a reminder of who we are, of the people who stand with us. You can't buy that. You can't break that." Victor's smile faltered, and the crowd murmured, sensing the shift. Elias stepped forward, his voice steady. "This is my show, Mr. Hargrove. My art. My truth. You're not going to take that away." The room erupted in applause, the sound drowning out Victor's reply. Ezra grinned, his heart pounding. They were fighting back, and they were winning. But Victor's eyes promised this wasn't over. The real battle was yet to come. The applause still echoed as Victor stood frozen, his face a mask of controlled fury. The gallery pulsed with energy, Elias's words hanging in the air like a challenge. Ezra felt the crowd's support, a wave of solidarity that made his chest ache with hope. But Victor's presence was a dark cloud, his eyes promising retaliation. Lena stepped closer to Victor, her voice low. "Leave, Victor. You've lost this round." He leaned in, his voice a hiss. "You think this is a game? You're playing with fire, Lena, and your boys will get burned." Ezra's blood boiled, but before he could act, Sophia intervened, her voice firm. "Mr. Hargrove, you're disrupting the event. Please leave, or I'll have security escort you out." Victor's smile was cold, but he raised his hands in mock surrender. "I'll go, but this isn't over." He turned to Elias, his gaze cutting. "Nice show, kid. Enjoy it while it lasts." As Victor and his men left, the crowd erupted again, their support a roar of defiance. Elias returned to the stage, his face flushed with emotion. "Thank you," he said, his voice breaking. "This means everything." The rest of the night was a blur of praise and celebration. Critics raved about Elias's work. Collectors made offers, and activists embraced the twins, calling them symbols of resilience. Ezra stayed by Elias's side, his protective instincts never fully easing. Lena mingled with the collective's allies, her card now a quiet legend among those who knew its meaning. But as the night wound down, Rachel pulled Lena aside, her face grim. "Victor's team leaked a story," she said. "It's online now. Claims about your past, about the twins. They're calling Elias's art propaganda, saying you're using it to push an agenda." Lena's eyes flashed. "Let them talk. The truth is here, in this room." But Ezra overheard, his heart sinking. "What claims, Mom? What are they saying?" Lena hesitated, then pulled them into a quiet corner. "They're digging into my past," she said. "Before you were born, I was reckless. I got involved with some people, made mistakes. Nothing illegal, but messy. They're twisting it to make us look like troublemakers." Elias's face paled. "Will it hurt the showcase?" "No," Lena said firmly, "because we're fighting back. Rachel's leaking Victor's real estate scandal tomorrow. It'll hit the papers hard." Ezra grinned. "Good. Let him squirm." But the victory felt fragile. As they left the gallery, the city felt different, darker, sharper. Caleb was waiting across the street, his phone in hand, watching. Ezra's skin prickled, but Lena kept them moving, her arm around both boys. The next morning, the papers exploded with Rachel's leak. Victor's shady deal, evicting low-income tenants for a luxury development, was front-page news. Social media buzzed, hashtags like Justice for the Carters trending alongside Elias's art. The collective's allies amplified the story, painting Victor as the villain he was. But Victor wasn't done. That afternoon, a new article surfaced, this one targeting Lena. It claimed she'd been part of a radical group, accused of vandalism and extortion in the 90s. The details were vague, twisted, but damaging. Ezra and Elias read it in silence, their stomachs churning. "It's not true," Lena said, her voice shaking with anger. "Not the way they're spinning it. I fought for what was right, but I never hurt anyone." Ezra's voice was fierce. "Then we tell the truth. All of it." Lena nodded, her resolve hardening. "We will. The collective's meeting tonight. We're ending this." That night, in a loft owned by a collective member, Lena and the twins faced a room of allies. Artists, lawyers, activists, all bound by the same card. Rachel laid out their plan, a public statement, backed by evidence, exposing Victor's lies and the collective's true mission. Elias offered to share his art online, turning the narrative into one of love and resilience. Ezra volunteered to speak, his fire a beacon for others. As they spoke, the room filled with hope. The collective wasn't just a pact, it was a family like the one Lena had built with her sons. And together, they were unstoppable. The next day, the collective statement went viral. Elias's paintings, shared across social media, became a symbol of defiance. Ezra's speech, raw and unfiltered, rallied supporters. Victor's empire began to crack, his investors pulling back, his reputation crumbling. In the end, Victor retreated, his threats empty against the collective strength. The twins stood taller, their bond unbreakable, their mother's love their foundation. Lena's card, once a secret, was now a symbol of their victory, a reminder that no one could silence their truth. As they walked through Manhattan, the city alive around them, Elias squeezed Ezra's hand. "We did it," he whispered. Ezra grinned, pulling him close. "Yeah, we did. Together." Lena watched her boys, her heart full. The fight wasn't over. Not for them, not for the collective, but they'd faced the worst and come out stronger. And in that moment, under the city's endless lights, they knew they could face anything as long as they had each other.